So, opinions are obviously a thing in Pokemon, and while everyone has their favorites when it comes to all the different things in Pokemon, pretty much everyone also has their least favorites as well, and what they think are the worst of every kind of character or Pokemon in Pokemon that is out there. And that is what we are here to discuss today. Oh boy, it's gonna be a fun one, and I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of words that are thrown around in the comments, because we are going to be looking at the absolute worst of everything in Pokemon, in my opinion. Basically, I'm going to be covering all of the major different categories of Pokemon and characters, like starters, legendaries, mythicals, and then for human characters like gym leaders and Elite Four members and things like that. Pretty much all of the major categories of things that are in Pokemon I will be covering today, and I'm going to give you guys what I think are the worst in every one of those categories. Obviously, once again, this is all just my opinion, and you are going to have to leave your opinion on all of these things in the comments below as well. And with all that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so first things first, we're going to begin this video with the starters, and before I actually tell you guys who I think is the worst starter Pokemon of them all, I just want to say thank you for the support, and if you would like to further support the channel as well, check out my Pokemon remixes on Spotify. I just barely put up the original soundtrack to my Pokemon Cardinal series up there, as well as basically every other streaming service that is out there, so if you enjoyed Cardinal, if you enjoyed Pokemon remixes, check that out because it immensely supports the channel, and thank you so much if you already do. Now, with that said, who is my least favorite starter Pokemon? Who is the worst of them all, in my opinion? Well, it was kind of a difficult choice, but I gotta go with Popplio. Popplio is just... I've never really enjoyed Popplio, to be honest, and although I will admit that if it wasn't a starter, it would be a perfectly fine Pokemon, and I wouldn't really have the dislike for it that I do, it just, I don't know, it just doesn't do a good job of being a starter in my opinion, and then the thing that really dragged it down ultimately into this worst position is its evolutions. I don't think it has one single good evolution. Brionne I don't like, Primarina I don't like, so pretty much every single individual stage of this line I am not a fan of, or I absolutely just really dislike in the case of like Brionne and Primarina. So for all of those reasons, yeah, Popplio unfortunately gets this honor. Now we're gonna look at legendary Pokemon, and it was actually a bit of a tougher choice than I thought it was going to be in this category, but I ultimately settled on Tornadus. If you guys have watched this channel for a while, you would know that I really just hate the forces of nature. I don't like their designs. I think they're very uncreative and unimaginative, and I singled out Tornadus because his color scheme of green and purple just doesn't look good. Like, I've never been a fan of that whole eggplant color scheme. I just kinda think it's ugly. I will say though that the two horses from the Crown Tundra DLC, Glastrier and Spectrier, actually gave the forces of nature a run for their money, which I never thought would ever happen, which just goes to show you how bad I think those guys are as well. But in the end, I felt like Tornadus and kinda technically the forces of nature by association still took the crown as the worst of the worst. And since we're looking at legendaries, we might as well go ahead and look at mythicals. And my personal worst mythical Pokemon that currently exists, before Gen 9 by the way, this is pre-Scarlet and Violet, is Zarude. Now, Zarude, there are other mythical Pokemon that I'm not necessarily a huge fan of either, but Zarude is the worst because, A, it looks like a fine Pokemon, kind of like Popplio, but in terms of a mythical Pokemon, it doesn't really give me mythical vibes. it also suffers the thing that a lot of mythical Pokemon suffer these days, where nothing happens with it. Yeah, it got that movie, the Pokemon the movie Coco, but in terms of the games, it's just given to you, that's it, no lore, no extra detail, no nothing, and it honestly becomes, like, mythical Pokemon like that become more forgettable than like Route 1 Pokemon, because at least you get to authentically encounter those, whereas with this, you just get gifted it and then you might use it a couple times, but you mostly just put it away in the box and it's just dumb. So that, combined with Zarude not really having the mythical feel anyway, kind of makes it, or I should say, it definitely makes it the worst in this category for me. Next up, why don't we go ahead and look at Megas, and my personal worst/least favorite Mega evolution is Mega Venusaur. In the Mega category, it came down to Mega Venusaur or Mega Mewtwo Y, and I ultimately picked Mega Venusaur because basically Venusaur is, like, I would say, the least liked or the least favorite of the three final evolutions of the Kanto starters for what it does as a design, and Venusaur just does more of that. Its plant just gets a little bigger, and that's kind of it. Whereas I feel like Charizard and Blastoise and, like, basically a lot of the other Mega evolutions as well, they do a good job of emphasizing the coolness of the Pokemon, or make it look just, they up the cool in general, and I don't really get that vibe from Venusaur, and since it's my personal least favorite of the Kanto bunch anyway, and it just enhanced what made it that way, it ultimately kind of zeroed itself in as the worst Mega for me. Similar to Mega evolutions are, of course, Gigantamax forms, and my least favorite Gigantamax form is Gigantamax Snorlax. Why did they think it was a good idea to just have it lay down and have a whole, like, park grow on its stomach? I get they're going for the more goofy, natured design here, but I just think it's the most unimaginative and uncreative thing that they could have ever done. And these are the kinds of designs, similar to the forces of nature, that really offend me as a Pokemon fan. When it comes off as just unimaginative, uncreative, and really feels like not a lot of effort was put into it, and like anyone could have made that, it just looks really basic. Those are the designs that I just cannot appreciate, and that's what Gigantamax Snorlax is for me, which is why it's, in my opinion, the worst Gigantamax form. Okay, now let's look at regional variants, and my personal worst, least favorite regional variant pre-Scarlet and Violet is Galarian Rapidash. And I don't necessarily feel like this is a super unpopular opinion either, because I know a lot of people were disappointed in Galarian Rapidash because Galarian Ponyta was phenomenal, it looked great, and for whatever reason that just did not translate over with Galarian Rapidash. It kind of did what I guess we should have expected the evolution to do coming off of Galarian Ponyta, because it doesn't really do anything that's just like alarmingly bad. It just doesn't look as good as it could have, being a majestic unicorn type of Pokemon. I feel like a lot of people think it could have looked a lot better, especially with as good as Galarian Ponyta looked, and so it was just a big disappointment. Next up, we are looking at Pikachu clones, and my least favorite Pikachu clones are Plusle and Minun, the tag team duo from Generation 3. And I will say, I don't dislike Plusle and Minun at all, so this is kind of a someone had to be the worst type of situation. But with Plusle and Minun, the thing that kind of put them a little lower is that I feel like their whole plus and minus theme they have going on is kind of illustrated a little too on the nose in terms of their design. Like, they literally have plus signs and minus signs like on their tails, and I believe even on their cheeks as well. And I feel like they could have done something a little more fluid with that concept to integrate it a little more naturally into the design, instead of just sticking a plus sign on a Pokemon and calling it a day. We've got a trio of Pokemon now that we're going to do all in succession as one group, and that would be the starting bug, bird, and rodent of every game, the Route 1 Pokemon that you see all the time. And for my least favorite bug, it's got to be Venipede. And the reason why is because, once again, I don't hate this Pokemon, but Venipede, for whatever reason, was encountered far later into the game than the starting bugs usually are, so it's like amongst the starting bugs, I basically just forget that it's even there half the time, because you don't really encounter it in the way that you encounter starting bugs typically. When it comes to the least favorite bird, in my opinion, that has got to be also from Gen 5, Unpheasant, because it's just so kind of like bland and boring, which is weird because it's the only one of the bunch that has multiple forms based on whether it's a male or a female, and that gives it some uniqueness. But it just, even with that, the designs are just like bleh. Meh, like why would I pick you when I could go with Talonflame or Staraptor or Corviknight? There's just so many better options in this department. And also I feel like a pheasant Pokemon could have been better too, so that's why that is the way it is. And for our least favorite rodent, we've got Squavit. Squavit is like fine enough on its own, but it's honestly not that great. Once again, like Sentret exists, Zigzagoon exists, which I should say rodent/mammal for people who get technical about that. That's what I mean in this category. I know they're not all rodents, settle down, but Sentret, Zigzagoon, even Bidoof, all of those are better than Squavit, and then Greedent is just Greedent. Greedent is like a worse Bibarel, and so that's why it's the worst for me. We are now on to fossil Pokemon, and my least favorite fossil Pokemon is Lileep and Cradily. These things are just weird and kind of creepy. And when it comes to fossil Pokemon, I wouldn't say that all of them are something that I would put on my team, but there is basically no fossil Pokemon that I don't find interesting and intriguing and can kind of give my seal of approval to, except for Lileep and Cradily. They're just kind of odd, they're kind of just like lame, and they're kind of uncomfortable looking with the whole, I'm sure I've heard the memes about that whole neckwear they've got going on. It's just not what I want out of a fossil Pokemon, and I feel like I was playing Ruby when I first played the Hoenn games, and I believe they're tied to Ruby because I remember getting them out of a fossil. Or, no, they're not tied. I just picked their fossil first, so it wasn't a version exclusive thing. I just picked their fossil when I was playing the Gen 3 games, and that is what I got, and I was disappointed. I remember something to that effect, so that probably affects my opinion too. And now for our last Pokemon-centric category of the video, which actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm gonna do one more after this because I just remembered one that I forgot. But this one is evolutions, and my least favorite evolution is Vaporeon. I know this is kind of an unpopular pick because I mean, all of the evolutions are popular, but Vaporeon just does not do it for me, and I honestly don't really know why. I just think that all of the others are so much better. I much prefer Flareon, Jolteon. I much prefer Espeon and Umbreon. They're obviously like the favorites. I much prefer Leafeon, even though Leafeon kind of gets hated on sometimes, and I definitely prefer Glaceon, and I also prefer Sylveon. So it's just kind of the bottom of the barrel because I like the others better. Okay, now here is the final Pokemon-related category of the video, and it is Pseudo Legendaries. I literally just remembered this category as I was filming, so this is literally all off the top of my head. I have not prepared this at all. And if I also don't cover any other Pokemon categories, feel free to leave your picks for those in the comments below. This is definitely not a comprehensive list or anything. But when it comes to my least favorite Pseudo Legendary, let's see, we got Dragonite, Tyranitar, Metagross, and Salamence. You've got Garchomp, you've got, oh, I know who it is. I didn't even have to get that far in the list to realize it. Hakamoa. I really don't like Hakamoa. Or is it is it Komoa? Or you got Jangmo-o. You got Jangmo-o and then Komoa. Which one is it? Their names are so confusing. They're all over the place. Okay, it is Komoa. I was right. And the reason why I really dislike this is because it's just ugly. this guy is just ugly. And Jangmo-o is like one of my favorite Pokemon. Like, legitimately. I think Jangmo-o looks super cool. Hakamo-o is fine, but still has much of the same problems, and then it just really falls off with Kommo-o. I just don't think they're visually appealing Pokemon at all. Like, straight up, that's the reason why I don't like them, because I think they're ugly. There's really no other reason for it. And it also kind of makes it worse because they're dragon fighting types, and the only dragon fighting types, so they have a unique type combo. That type combo is cool, and they come out looking like this. And they evolve from something that also looks really cool. So, yeah, those guys are my least favorite. Okay, with that out of the way, we are now going to get into the human character portion of the video, and the first category I have to discuss are the professors. And my least favorite / worst professor, through no fault of its own, is Professor Magnolia. And it's not Professor Magnolia that I don't like. I don't like how they treated Professor Magnolia, because Professor Magnolia's sole purpose in the games is literally just to get replaced by her granddaughter Sonia. Like, that's the whole reason she is there, is that so Sonia can have a character arc, basically, and take over for her grandma. And because of that, they kind of just push her to the side and don't really have her do much of anything at all, while Sonia kind of takes over, and I think that's kind of dumb. I really love Sonia. Who doesn't love Sonia? And I love that she did graduate to become a Pokemon professor, but I feel like Magnolia didn't have to be she didn't have to be basically just on the chopping block the whole time. You could have done something with her to give her some kind of spotlight and some kind of her own character arc as well. But because she was just kind of a pawn for her granddaughter, they really did her dirty, in my opinion. Next up, we're going to look at gym leaders, and my least favorite gym leader is Berg. Berg, every time he comes up in discussion, or every time I think about him or see him somewhere, I'm just like, meh. He's just not exciting. He's kind of dull, in my opinion. His design doesn't really do anything for me. I'm just kind of like, and it's kind of weird because he also is, he's the gym leader of Castelia City, which is the capital of the region. It's based on New York City, so it's kind of like a primetime area. And that's what they gave us for the gym leader of this capital city, this primetime area. It's someone who I kind of just feel like is kind of forgettable. Now we're looking at champions, and for my least favorite champion, we've got Wallace. And Wallace is here because when it comes to champions, he's kind of an afterthought. Like, when you think of Wallace, at least in my experience anyway, I don't think of him as a champion first. I think of him as a gym leader first, because that's what he was at first, and then he became a champion in Emerald. So when I'm thinking of champions, it's always like, oh yeah, Wallace is a champion too. So he's literally like amongst the champions already an afterthought. And even in the game where he is a champion, the actual like main champion, if you will, of this generation, Steven Stone, is still more powerful than him in that game, because he's like a super boss character similar to Red that you can battle in the post game, who's literally more powerful than Wallace himself. So he just doesn't quite fit the bill of the champion title, in my opinion. And since we're talking about champions, we might as well go ahead and talk about Elite Four, and my pick for the Elite Four is interesting, because it is the entire Alola Elite Four, minus Kahili. Yeah, I know I'm not picking one specific person for this particular pick, but the reason why is because the Alola Elite Four in particular really rubbed me the wrong way, in a way that I can't really remember any other Elite Four member doing. And the reason why I just disliked them so much so the first time around was because, other than Kahili, all of the characters are ones that you've already seen, and some of them you've even battled before already with, you got Hala, you've got Acerola, and you've got Olivia, and then you've got Molayne in the Ultra games, but you still had already encountered him there as well, and he wasn't like a big bad Elite Four member type of encounter. It was, oh, he just so happens to run the PC system. So I just feel like the way they recycled the characters for the Elite Four in the Alola games was really disappointing, because I always look forward to meeting the Elite Four and seeing what kind of characters they are, and the fact that we had already seen all of them already and battled a couple of them at least and beaten them, it was just felt kind of lazy. It felt kind of just like not fun, and so yeah, kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. We are getting towards the end of the list here, and the next category we have to cover are the rivals, and I feel like this pick is probably most people's pick, and that would be all of the rivals from Pokemon X and Y. Now, don't get me wrong, I personally love Pokemon X and Y. I think they're phenomenal. They're some of my more favorite Pokemon games, but the rivals are just so lame. They're just not good. First of all, we didn't really need 4 of them. Like, there's literally 4. Serena, the opposite player character, Tierno, and Trevor. We don't need 4, there's way too many there. And then also, they're just the epitome of the nice, friendly rival that's just like, oh, you beat me, congratulations. That's like the opposite of the definition of the word rival. Like, I get rivals can be nice, they don't always have to be punks, but the XY rivals took it too far, and that's why they're my least favorite. Opposite of the rivals are, of course, the player characters, though, and for my least favorite player characters, we've got kind of an interesting duality, because I am going to give it to Lyra, but as part of a tie, sort of, with the Gen 9 player characters. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they're kind of like my 1B selection. Lyra is my 1A, because I want to let them have their time in the sun and really prove to me that they might actually be cool. But their whole school uniform aesthetic, get-up costume design thing just looks pretty goofy, and so just based on appearances alone, they're kind of lower on the totem pole. But when it comes to Lyra, the reason why Lyra is my least favorite is simply because she replaced Chris. She booted Chris out of the game, quite literally, because Chris was actually going to be in Heart Gold and Soul Silver at one point, for no reason whatsoever. Like, why would you replace a player character in that way when you didn't need to, because you already had one available? And not only did they have one available for the Johto games, Chris was literally the first female player character. She was a trailblazer. She literally made history in that aspect for Pokemon, and you're gonna go ahead and replace her? I get if it's a thing like Fire Red, Leaf Green. There was no female player character, so they just had to make a new one with Leaf. But with the Johto games, you already had one. You did not have to make a new one, and honestly, what you replaced Chris with isn't even as cool or interesting looking. I personally think that Chris has a way cooler and just more interesting design than Lyra does, even though Lyra isn't bad design-wise in and of herself, but because she booted out Chris for no reason, and it's kind of disrespectful, honestly, and Chris has a better design anyway, Lyra, by association, because of circumstance, is the worst player character, in my opinion. And finally, we've reached the final category of this video, and that would be none other than evil teams. And my personal least favorite / worst evil team of them all, pre-Scarlet and Violet, is Team Yell. I feel like this isn't an unpopular opinion either, but Team Yell, as far as evil teams go, kind of suck a lot. Their characters are fine, their appearance is fine, their role in the game is fine, but I feel like if you're going to give a group of characters the label of the evil team, they have got to step up to that plate and live up to that name, and that is something that Team Yell did not do. They did a lot of other fun things, but they did not live up to the evil team moniker, and they really fell flat in that department, if I'm being completely honest. So, while they're fine in and of themselves, they're not a good evil team. Whew! Well, there you have it, everybody. That is the absolute worst of everything in Pokemon. Now, like I said, this isn't comprehensive, so if I missed a category or something like that, let me know in the comments below. Let me know all your thoughts and your worst picks in the comments below as well. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and remember, if you don't agree with me, it's just an opinion, it's fine, we can disagree. With that being said though, I will be back with another video very soon, and until the next one, as always, thank you guys for watching this one, I love you very much, and I will smell you guys later.